Recently on the Wayspotters podcast, you heard my dad say...
Lucifer, how far are you from Killeen, Texas? I would love to know if anybody in your local Discord has mentioned this and what's the impact on them. For science. Yes, okay. Said my piece. I'll leave it alone. Hello, agents, trainers, keepers, pilots, eighth wallers, and our beloved explorers and wayfinders. Welcome to episode number 125 of the Wayspotters podcast. Here at Wayspotters, we want to do everything we can to help you become a better wayfinder. As we've always said, we want to educate, we want to entertain, and we want to excite. Wayspotters is brought to you by the good people at the Pokemon Professor Network, and today is Friday, June 7th, 2024. I'm Jamal. I'm here with Chris. Hey, man, what's going on?
Not much, buddy. How you doing?
Do you realize in 1 month we will be in New York at GoFest? Literally 1 month.
I was just thinking that when you said it was June 7th. That's crazy. I am so excited.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy. So I'm looking forward to that. And we've got a lot of stuff we've got to do between now and GoFest time. Stuff needs to stop breaking around my house and around your car so I can save some money and have some money actually for New York. So that needs to happen. Other than that, things are great. So before we get into all of that, let's go to the news.
And now, the latest Niantic news from the Wayspotters podcast, presented by the Pokemon Professor Network.
All right, all of the challenge rewards should be sent out. If there was a problem right at the beginning with the Ingress codes not working, so I think that delayed everybody else getting their rewards email because they all bundled them into one email, right? So I think they wanted to fix that solution have a solution for that before they started sending out the codes again. So I got mine like at 11 o'clock on the 4th at night, so they were waiting to the last minute to get these out. People were also saying that they didn't get the OPR tick in Ingress. There is a thread on the forums. If you didn't get it, if you still don't have it by the time you're listening this, go to the forums and comment and reply to, I think it was Niantic Karen's post saying, hey, I didn't get my OPR tick, and they'll look into it. So that's that. And they also posted a recap debrief of the Wayfarer tent in Sendai for GoFest there. I didn't get a chance to read it, so go to the forum and check it out. That's it. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you for the news, Chris, and thank you for the intro testone. So before we jump into topics number 1 and 2, I want to brag for a hot second, Chris, if you'll indulge me. Like we've talked about before, a few episodes back, we've got a host of new team members on the Pokemon Professor Network. And when you have new team members, you have a new banner. So I want to share this banner here with everybody. So if you're listening on audio, I'm showing the new Pokemon Professor Network banner. It's got the boys from the Wayspotters podcast, Special Conditions, Gotta Watch Them All, Lured Up, Purified Podcast, and Good Morning Johto. So it's really cool, Chris. I think this is an awesome banner, but I do have one problem with it. You know what that problem is?
What's that?
Man, that's a whole lot of dudes right there, man. We could really use some female representation, some non-binary representation, something other than a bunch of dudes. So if you're not a dude and you like Pokemon or Niantic-based games and you want to host a podcast, hit us up. We'd love to talk to you. So I'm all about hanging out and broing out, but representation is important. And there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast who are not dudes, who are non-binary, who are female, who are whatever it is. You know, I don't care what you are, but I want you to be represented. So if you want to talk about Niantic-related things and have a podcast, let me know. I will help you. But yeah, we got to break up the dude party there. So I wanted to put that out there, but welcome to Luis and Chris and Lane. Really glad to have your shows on the network. Absolutely. And you guys are doing a fantastic job. We just wanted to give you one more official welcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And another bit of housekeeping, Chris. Let's bring up this other graphic here. We've got some really, really good things going on. and a great time with our new teammates, we have been added onto the Terra Player app. And so we're going to tell you a little bit about what Terra Player is, but you can go and find all of the Pokemon Professor shows on the Terra Player app. So all of the shows on the Pokemon Professor Network have been added to the Terra Player app. Terra Player is a new platform that partners with Radio Sega and other gaming audio entertainment providers to offer a centralized hub for video game music, entertainment podcasts, and live audio streams.
Terra Player aims to be an inclusive outlet for the gaming community, providing 24/7 access to gaming-related content via PC, smartphones, tablet, and Amazon Alexa devices in the UK. The platform consolidates radio stations and podcasts into one place, making it easier for listeners to discover and enjoy gaming content, including gaming music.
Terra Player features a dedicated channel for Radio Sega, where users can access links to other platforms, listen to on-demand episodes of Radio Sega live programming, tune in to live Sega-focused VGM stream, view recently played tracks, and explore a catalog of podcasts from past shows.
Additionally, Terra Player offers special features like an On This Day section showing podcasts from previous years and indicator tags for selecting specific podcasts.
At the end of the day, the Wayspotters podcast, along with all the other podcasts on the Pokemon Professor Network, are extremely proud and honored to be included on the platform from the very beginning. We can't wait to see where this goes. We'll include a link to this site in our show notes. Please go give them a listen. And just so you know, right now, only radio is live on the podcast or on the app. Podcasts and everything else is live on the desktop version. So that will be coming soon. So that is the last bit of housekeeping.
That's exciting. I'm excited.
Yeah,
to get
that's very exciting for sure. Where we love to be on there. And I went online and I pulled it up on my desktop, and I'm like, hey, that's us. I'm like, they had us in the featured section, like the Wayspotters podcast was in the feature section, and I clicked on it, and they had a little write-up, and they talked about how we do news and how we do dad jokes and how we do topics, and they even had our taglines in there. I'm like, somebody like really listened to the show and like really went all out. I was like, wow, that's really cool. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so go to terraplayer.com and check out the app. More functionality coming, but that's another place where you can listen to all the shows on the Pokemon Professor Network, aside from YouTube and aside from Spotify and wherever else you're listening to us right now. That is another avenue for you. So we're really excited to be in on that. But Chris, I think it's time to go to topic number 1. What about you?
Agreed.
Topic number 1.
All right, Chris. So there was a great conversation on the Wayfarer discussion Discord the other day, and it got me thinking, like really got me thinking that we should have make that conversation into a topic. So let's see. But first, if you don't know what the Wayspotters discussion Discord is, you should, right? If you are listening to this podcast and you are a fan of Wayfarer, you should know about the Wayfarer discussion Discord. So I'll just give a brief overview. We've had a couple shows on them, but for our new listeners, I'll give a quick little brief overview of the Wayfarer discussion Discord. So the Wayfarer discussion Discord is an active online community where explorers can come together to discuss various aspects of the game. It serves as a platform for players to share their experiences, ask questions, seek help with gameplay, and engage in conversations related to the game's storylines, characters, and mechanics. The Discord server provides a space for fans to connect with each other, exchange tips and strategies, and stay up to date on any announcements or developments related to the game that we love, Niantic Wayfarer. Explorers can join the Wayfarer discussion Discord to interact with fellow nominators and reviewers and participate in discussions about their favorite aspects of the game and engage in a vibrant community dedicated to exploring all facets of the Wayfarer universe. So the conversation, Chris, was about interesting POIs, very generic POIs, and POIs that are generic, very generic and not interesting, being nominated in a cell and like blocking it forever from something cool and unique. So think like a memorial bench that's in a park that is by a wall, and that memorial bench has been there, and then the city or someone comes and puts a really cool 2-story mural up, and it's vibrant, it's got colors, and it celebrates the local community, but you can't get it in any of the games because that really awful generic bench, which is legal, don't get me wrong, it beats the criteria. It's legal, and it bench, insert trail marker, whatever you want. It's completely legal and it fits criteria, but it's blocking something that's super cool and people would want to see. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. Now, there's a little bit more to that conversation. It got into bike racks and whether or not they are eligible and whether or not they're unique, and there's a whole other story about that, but we can have that on another show, and we'll invite somebody on potentially to talk about that. And there's a couple different schools of thought that, but it got me thinking, Chris. Wayfarer is very much a first come first serve game, right? I mean, if you are the one that gets to the open sale first, you get to pick what's nominated in that sale and where the placement is. So depending on your discerning taste, you and I may come to an open sale and see 2 potentially different POIs to nominate, both 100% legal to the criteria, but both vastly different in what they are. And that's okay, I think. Now, Chris, this is where I want you to weigh in. Right? I'm talking a lot. Should there be a mechanic for having something being mass-produced or boring being demoted from being a portal, Pokestop, flower, gym, whatever, in favor of something more unique and interesting to the area? So I'm going to give a couple examples. A church POI would be the current POI. The new suggested POI would be like a welded steel cross, in the yard of the church. Second one would be like a bike rack. And bike rack in a park or somewhere. And then the new POI would be that 2-story mural that I talked about. And then the third one would be a post office, which is, we know those were part of the seed portals from Ingress that got ported over. But the new suggested would be like a mosaic design on the side of the building that could be a much more unique Pokestop, portal, whatever you want to call it, versus just the post office. So I want to get your thoughts on that.
I think it's a fantastic idea. There are plenty of times that I've gone to nominate something in a cell in Pogo that's like a beautiful mural, or it's whatever, it's a sculpture or a statue, and it's blocked by like the sign of a church. And I'm like, oh, it's already in there, and it's not in Ingress, and it's not in Pogo. It's just languishing on the Wayfarer lightship map.
Right.
So I think this is a fantastic idea. I do have some very major concerns about this being abused in Ingress, because I think that not so much in Pogo. Pogo is 1 per cell, and they don't have kind of the close together rules that are blocked. It's only really blocking what's in that cell. But if you're in Ingress, you could like potentially demote one portal, open up another portal, and then that portal would open up a couple other portals that are also blocked by that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's that potential for like a chain reaction of abuse in Ingress. I think that's less likely to be abused because it's Ingress. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that would be my only concern with this. Other than that, I think this is a fantastic idea.
Right. Now, I know this could potentially bring some problems on, because what would be the criteria for saying, and let's just talk about Pokemon Go for a second. Let's kind of put the other games on the back burner, because you bring up a very, very good point with Ingress, right? That is something that would have to be solved before this went. Let's just take one game at a time. So I'm gathering you like the idea. So if the game board is live, shouldn't we keep it fresh with new and updated items? So if we're talking specifically about Pokemon Go, and something new goes in that cell, and I know Niantic has not really officially acknowledged cells, right? So let's just call it what it is. I'm going to acknowledge cells for the purposes of this argument. We've got a cell, and one of the things that I kind of thought through when I was putting this together was, what would be a criteria? How would you demote one thing and promote another? Would it just be votes, right? Like you vote on the pitcher? And you know how like if you go in and like we've got our thumbing channel and you thumb the one you want and that ends up being the picture. Would it be a mechanism like that to say if I have 2 POIs in one cell, only one is going to show up in Pokemon Go? Would the one with the most votes be the one that shows up in Pokemon Go? Now, problem with that is it could fluctuate over time. You could have one that has 10 votes and one that has 1 vote, and people come through and upvote the other. And would that mess up the coding? And we talked about last week, what would that do to the scans? So I know that there's a lot of potential pitfalls here, but I'm just talking surface level. And then once we solve that, we can kind of go a little bit deeper. But Chris, do you think that what I just explained there would be total chaos for the people who do the coding and engineering behind the scenes? And what would that do to people who collect keys if we want to bring Ingress into it?
I have one thing to say. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. I declare a thumb war. I think would be the thing here. Like you would have people especially in Pogo. I think, because it's 1 per cell. You would say, well, that's my nomination. I want it in the game. I don't care about your gorgeous mural. I want my bench to be in the game because it's got my name on it. So you would definitely, if you had a mechanism in game, it would definitely be a thumb war between factions. And I think at some point you have a finite number of players in the area and one would win out over the other. But it would be interesting. I don't think necessarily it would be like a coding problem. It more a player fighting over which of the POIs got in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I absolutely mean it would be like the early days of Ingress when people were actually like actively playing the game and like when it was before my time in Ingress, but it was the thing where you tracked people. Do you remember what that was called? I know Pokemon Trainer J, the Guardian badge, where you had to like knock people out. If I'm wrong on that, Pokemon Trainer J, Agent X, somebody correct me, but that was before my time of playing Ingress. But what I meant by the coders and the engineering is like the legitimate actual placement on the map. So let's say I had a cell with 2 POIs, and one is the bench and one is the mural, and they're 6 meters apart. If that was demoted and the other one was promoted, the POI would physically move on the map. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So there has to be some kind of backdoor engineering for something to move from one place on the other. It doesn't just happen. And if that was happening all the time based on votes, then that could be a potential problem. And you'd have somebody just all over the world just moving things 5 or 6 meters back. So I get that there's problems with this, but I'm talking more of what are my options if I am being a good Wayfarer, being a good explorer, and I'm looking to make sure the map is up to date, and I'm looking to make sure that things are in the places where they should be. There's a lot of chatter, as we record this on Friday, there's a lot of chatter on the forums about removing things and repurposing things and what's abuse. And, I got on the forum and said my piece, and I've got some really strong feelings. And this, Chris, about repurposing things. And, anyways, that's not the show topic today. Maybe next time, maybe 2 times after this. But if I'm a good wayfinder and I'm out and I'm trying to make sure the map's up to date and I'm cleaning things up and I come across something that is just really exquisite, like, for example, I shared with you and another person in a private channel that big 5-story mural on the side of the parking garage in Charlotte. Remember the one I showed you?
Yep.
There is something very just blah in that cell, and that's the POI. Like it's nothing. It's barely eligible what's in the cell. But here's this it's like a dinosaur, and it's like kids blocks, like the 1, 2, 3 ABC blocks, and it's over the entire parking garage. It's beautiful. It almost looks real, and there's like a little kid playing with the dinosaur, and they've been painting this thing for weeks, and they finally finished it. And I went and I took pictures of it and I shared it. But that will never show up in Pokemon Go. And depending on where I would place the pin, it might not show up in Ingress because it's too close to the other pin also. So it's a beautiful mural that would never really be in the game. It would be definitely light ship only. and it's so new that other games might not pick it up. So it's one of those things that it's just kind of a wasted piece of art, and I would love to see it represented. And you know this, Chris. So just so anybody listening, this is not coming from a selfish place, because I nominate everything in English. So you will never see my name. You will never see my name in Pokemon Go. I don't care about that. That's not my deal. I nominate everything in English. So if you come to my city and you click on a Pokestop, you will never see my name on it unless I was out of English nominations and I use Pokemon. So this is not coming from a position of selfishness. This is coming from a position of, that is really interesting. I would love for that to be represented in the game. But not knowing enough about the back end of Niantic, I don't know what that would look like.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that need to come up here. They would almost have to acknowledge cells in Pogo, right? They would almost have to acknowledge the inclusion rules, unless they introduced a mechanic in Pogo that would allow you to look at the light chip map and click on something that's not in Pogo, and it would say, this Wayspot is blocked from appearing in Pokemon Go by this. I'm not going to say why. They're just saying that this is the reason that this doesn't appear in the game. And then maybe there's a button on there that says appeal or put into voting. I want this to be the one that shows up in the game. And then it went into Wayfarer voting like a new nomination would. And it would just come up in your votes. Like, which one of these is the better POI? Which one of these is more interesting, is more exercisey, or what? It's a word, but you know what? You get my point. Right?
I know you brought me right to my next point. Could this potentially create an artificial backlog for reviewers? Because the way that I would love to see this, Chris, and this is how I kind of drew it out when I put this together. So we have POI nominations and we have POI edits. I would love to see Niantic introduce a third category. You ready for this? The third category would be repurpose/replace. And then those would get voted on. So you'd be able to nominate a new Pokestop, edit an existing Wayspot title or description, and then repurpose and replace. And that's where I would like to see this go into. And it would be voted on by the Wayfinders, a repurpose and replace. And very similar to what you just described there. But then I'm worried, by looking at Jamal's crazy ass idea, would this create an additional backlog for people and create another problem where if these things went into voting, then you have this there? So I don't know. I'm breaking stuff. I'm in the China shop with the bat and I'm just breaking stuff because I got all these crazy ideas. So the 20-meter rule would be something we'd have to look at. Could this potentially create an artificial backlog for reviewers? And then my favorite, this is my favorite. How would reviewers know which one was the old one and which one is the new one? Right? So you know where I'm going there. I would love to be able to say, hey, this is why I'm doing an edit. This is why I'm doing a repurpose and replace.
Yeah. So I don't even know if you would need to know. Like an edit, it says here's two descriptions, right? Pick one. So if you were to have like the replace one, you'd have to know. Like you'd have to know this is what it was, this is what it is, and this is why I'm replacing it. But like if you're saying I want this to be the POI that shows up in Pogo or in English, right? You could just show two and just pick the one that's better. You don't necessarily need to know the one that's there, right? And I don't think that this would necessarily create more of a backlog, because you'd be able to hammer through that pretty quick, right? Like it would be a generic bench versus a gorgeous mural, and it would have the title and the description of both, and you would look at the mural and go, well, clearly the mural is better than the bench that's nominated to or in the game for some guy who was just a grandpa. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. And then the last thing on this, and this is the one that I saved this for last because I think this would be the make or break. And this would obviously be the first one, but doing it first is not good for conversation, but is there a possibility someone could cheat / exploit the system? So I could just hear Niantic Aaron right now going, you haven't thought about this and you haven't thought about that, and I probably haven't. So if so, how could you put a system like this in place without people being able to exploit or cheat it? I think the short answer is people are going to find a way to cheat everything, but how would you, what would be the best case scenario?
The only way I think this gets abused is the way that I mentioned earlier, is you're having people unblock portals because that unblocking of that portal is going to open up 2 or 3 more portals. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of the only way that I see potentially this could be abused. Because if you're unblocking one thing in Pogo, it's just, you're just creating something else in a cell. Maybe you're unblocking the Pokestop that's closer to your house to get a couch spot. But yeah, I mean, I could see that being a problem, but people are doing that anyway. People are, like I showed in one of the other episodes, people are making move edits to try and get stuff off of parks into their living rooms. So
yes,
you just have to police it like you police everything else. And I'm a big proponent of not doing something because it can be abused, because someone's going to abuse it. Like, you don't keep this from people. You don't say, well, millions of people are going to enjoy this, but 1,000 people are going to abuse it. Like, no, that's the good outweighs the bad.
Exactly. Now, I want to ask you a question that I honestly don't know the answer to. Is there a limit on edit moves? Do you know the answer to that? So let me paint a picture. So there's a POI that I want to move from one side of the playground to the other. And let's say that gets moved. And someone comes in and goes, who moved this Wayspot? And they move it back. And then I see it and I say, oh, I want to move it again. I don't think Niantic has said, or if they have, they haven't publicized it. Is there a limit on times you can move something? Because that was the other thing I thought about this. If we change it from the bench to the mural, someone could go, nope, I want the mural. And they go and change it from the mural to the bench. And I go back and change it again. So, but I want to start with edits, because edits are in the game. Have you seen anything on the forums of a limit on how many times you can move a POI?
I don't think there is. I honestly don't think that there's a limit to how many times you could edit something. I think it's just infinite. I know that there's like a personal limit. You only have 40 at a time. But other than that, I don't think that you could move it 800 times, as far as I know.
Okay. I gotta say, there's probably an alarm that goes off. I'm sure they have some type of tracking mechanism if one POI gets moved several times. Right? I would hope.
I really doubt that there is. Given the number of times that I've seen 15 edit moves on the same Wayspot in my reviews,
okay,
I don't think there's any mechanism in the Niantic's backend to alert them to that sort of thing. Because I really think if there was, they really need to turn it on. They would have
stopped it. So, because what I'm thinking of is someone who tries to transit a POI, kind of 10 meters at a time until they can get it all the way to where they want it. You know what I mean?
People do that.
They do. But I would think there would be some way to say this POI started off here and now it's here. And then it goes, you know what I mean? I would think they would have some type of mechanism, because they can track everything to see that something has moved 100 meters over its lifespan, and some human go in and go, okay, what the heck's going on? This was originally here and now it's here. So I don't know.
There's 3 examples of stuff that in my reviews that I've seen people who were legitimately trying to move a Wayspot that was 100 meters away from where it should be, 10 meters at a time. Like, I could tell that's exactly what they were doing. So I went into the help chat and I was like, hey, it's supposed to be here. Someone's trying to move it here. That move's not. I mean, technically it's abuse because you're moving it to where it's still not supposed to be. But I'm like, they're trying to do the right thing. So can you just like save them 7 more edits and move it to where it's supposed to go? And they were like, yeah, we're taking it.
Yeah.
It's like that's a byproduct of people trying to move Wayspots across state lines.
Yes.
Niantic was just like, no,
Right.
Sorry, 10 meters. That's
not gonna do it. Yeah.
If it's more than 10 meters, we need to look at it. Right.
Remember the days. Remember the days before that rule. I don't know how hot and heavy into it you were then, but that was man, this used to be the Wild West, man. Like the OPR days, that was the Wild West. And I love
early OPR, early Wayfarer is a really good example of why we can't have nice things.
Yes. Oh,
like there's a lot of privileges that we've lost.
Yes. Oh my God. Back then, I've shared it with you, and I've shared it with who was in our chat with us? Was it Elf from Space? I shared some of my old stuff that I did way back in the OPR days where I was like, hey, the southwestern corner is where this thing should be. Select the before I knew the rules, I was all over the place, man. I would have been banned in 10 seconds back then, back in the OPR days. I was going in there, I'm writing a novel on why we need to move this here and what we need to do and select this picture. Whoo! I'm glad they don't retroactively go back to 2019 because Blame Jamal would be in some trouble. I would. No.
Yep. No, I believe it.
Yeah. So everybody out there listening, just know that Chris has rolled up the newspaper and retroactively swatted me for the 5 or 6 that I shared with him. There was like 8 or 9 that I didn't share with anybody that I'm not going to share with anybody. Yeah, so we'll just kind of leave that at that. This is not disclosure day today. So yeah, but no, to wrap this up, Chris, I'm always thinking, and I know you're always thinking about really crazy off the wall ideas, because I think in this world we live in, everything that we have right now came from a really super ludicrous, crazy idea. And it got kind of honed down into something that's realistic, except for the Cybertruck. That was a crazy idea. And nobody told Elon, hey, this thing is ugly. And it's here now. So, and to give you another example, somebody sat in a pitch meeting with movie executives and said, let's make a movie about sharks inside of a tornado. And somebody said, green light, let's shoot the movie. Right? So my idea is not crazier than sharks in a tornado, the Cybertrucks, or snakes on a plane. Because
I was just going to say snakes on a plane. I was just going to say snakes on a plane.
All of those things happen. Because you imagine sitting in a pitch meeting and somebody's like, okay, so there's this tornado that's on land, and then a shark gets in the tornado, and then we're going to make 3 movies about sharks in a tornado. What do you think about that? And they're like, let's put $100 million towards this idea. Let's go. So if that can happen, my idea about demoting a POI and promoting a better POI should at least get an audience with somebody. Acknowledge
it to the list for New York.
Yes, add it to the list for New York. So whoever's listening to this, you've been forewarned. It's on the list. All right, let's move on to topic number 2. Are you got anything else to say about that?
Do you know what we need on a t-shirt?
Oh, what's that?
Still a better idea than Sharknado.
Yes. It's still a better idea than Sharknado. As an aside, have you watched all the Sharknadoes?
I have.
Yeah, so have I. Yeah. So they got their money's worth because I watched all of them. Yeah. Yep. If I would ever make a movie, I'd make a movie like that. It would be the fusion of like 2 of the silliest possible things in the world, and they'd make it work. So,
yeah.
All right. Enough of that. Enough of my silliness. Let's go on to topic number 2.
Topic number 2.
All right. So for topic number 2, Chris, I want to have a little bit of a back and forth, shall we say, a little bit of something that should be on the forefront of the game, and that's community. Right. So community can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But what I want to hone in on today is, how do you get new / more players to the game to make the Lightship map better? And how do you keep those players engaged and involved in not only submitting, but reviewing, right? Something that's been very, very, very top of mind to me. And I think we see it after every Wayfarer challenge. Participation just dips, right? People are hot and heavy. They do 500, 600, 700 reviews during the time of the challenge. And when it's over, everybody needs a break. I get that. I need a break myself. but then that break tends to linger, and then the queues tend to back up and people tend to get a little more frustrated. So how do we keep that going? So one of the things I want to know from you, because I know in Plattsburgh, you had a really good community. And maybe you can talk about that, but how do you build community? How do you build up your community through Wayfarer? And you can talk about Plattsburgh or Oshawa or whatever, or just in general.
I think it's, first of all, you have to be out there doing it, right? And you have to have it almost, you have to have like a community already. Like you have to have like a Facebook group, you have to have a chat or something like that. Well, maybe you don't necessarily. In Plattsburgh, it was easier because we had a chat, and every time a new stop would come up, or every time something got turned into a gym, people were all over the chat. Oh, how did this happen? And then so that opened up the opportunity to say, hey, this is Wayfarer. This is how you do this. This is the system. You can go and you take a couple pictures, you put your description in, and then bam, there you go. And that afforded me the opportunity to say, hey, I'm going to be at this park at tomorrow at this time to do a bunch of nominations. If anybody wants to come down with me, I'll walk you through the process and you can do a couple. And that's how I got a couple people. And one of them was like, hey, I got some stuff by my work that I want to nominate. Can you swing by tomorrow on my lunch? I'm like, absolutely perfect. I'll make time for you. So I'd go out and I would help them. And then that kind of got them through. And it was a little bit easier in Plattsburgh because the turnaround time was so quick there too.
Right.
That people were just, they didn't get frustrated. They put it, and then 2 weeks later, boom, I've got a work stop, or boom, I've got my, my park by my house now has 2 gyms, right? You can do that. Like if you go out on community day and stuff, or on like raid hours and stuff, you can say, hey, did you notice the new stops that I've put into this park? Or did you notice the couple of the new gym that's in this area of the city? And people are like, oh yeah, I noticed that. Like, hey, do you want to be able to do that too? It's, you have to be out there doing it because it's the new stops and the new gyms and the new portals that prompts that conversation and prompts the opening for you to say, hey, I'm your guy, I can teach you. Right.
I remember back in the OPR days when you could only do it through Ingress, before Wayfarer came along. I was like the guy in my part of Charlotte, like, I put in our Discord, there was a couple of Discords I'd put in there, hey, if you have something you want in the game, here's what I need you to do. I need you to send me a picture of it head on, and then I need you to send me 2 pictures, one from one side and one from the other. That way I can kind of, decipher which was going to be the best picture to nominate. And then I'd say, tell me what it is. Give me some ideas of what I'm nominating. And people sent me some wild things, and I'm like, nah, dog, we can't do that. And here's why. But the cool thing about that was I got like a ton of things through, and people were like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then people were like, hey, let me have your phone number. And I would get these text messages in the middle of the night, and my wife would be like, what's that? And I'd show her. She's like, why is somebody sending you a picture of a whatever, a mural or whatever? I'm like, oh, they want this nominated. And so I told them it's got to be within 25 kilometers of North Charlotte. Like, think like I-77 and exit 18. Without doxing myself, that's fine. It's North Lake Mall. It's got to be within 25 kilometers of North Lake Mall. If it's within 25 kilometers of North Lake Mall, I can do it. If you're trying to do something in South Charlotte or Gastonia, buy me lunch and I'll drive over there and do it. But this way I can do it from the house, do it from the toilet or wherever. Tons of people, and there was 4 people specifically that would do this all the time, once a week, twice a week, would send me pictures and descriptions. And then when Wayfarer came along, I showed them how to do it, and now they're nominating more than me. I go over in certain parts of my area, and I look and I'm like, oh, that's so-and-so did that. So-and-so did this. And now things are springing up overall. And I can't take credit for that because people wanted to do it. They just didn't have the access to do it. There was one guy, one of the locals here, that actually played Ingress and got up to level 10 to do it because he didn't want to wait. I'm like, I don't know when this is ever going to come to Pokemon. So he did that. But my other question for you, Chris, is how can you build up a community of Wayfarers to go out and scout POIs? So you talked a little bit about Community Day in Plattsburgh and, hey, this is what this looks like. But how do you motivate people nowadays, given our current climate, to go out and look for POIs? How do you get them motivated to go out and do it?
That's a tough one. Like, you kind of have to be, you either have to have that altruistic mindset to say, hey, I want to be able to help my community. I want to be able to help other players of this game, or you have to want to improve the game board for yourself, right? And I think it's well, the one thing that I say to people when I try and get them involved in Wayfarer, and they're just like, oh, I don't know, it's a lot of work. I'm like, yes, it's a lot of work, but somebody did that work to get the stops that you are currently using. Somebody went out and did that work for you. Now it's incumbent on you. I think it's a nice thing to do, to kind of pay that forward a little bit and say, listen, I might not be able to use this ever again or very infrequently, but somebody will. And it's a really, really good feeling to drive by a city and say, hey, I created that gym. I created the stop that prompted that gym to pop up, and now it's full. People are using it. People are getting coins from it. People are getting enjoyment out of something that I have created. And because people have done that for you, it's the nice thing to do, to kind of do that for other people. It doesn't always work.
Right.
You kind of have to have
for
that
sure
mindset to begin with, to be a Wayfarer in general. And not everybody does, and that's fine. Right? But if you can kind of find the people who do have that mindset, then you can win them over.
And it's such a cool feeling when you get a gift from just some random local of a POI you created that you've never interacted with. That's happened to me a couple of times when some things I nominated in South Charlotte that they're still halos to me. I've never spun them, and I got a gift, and I'm like, why does that look familiar? Oh, that's right, I nominated that, and they had no idea, because, like I said, I nominated through Ingress. So unless they got the portal, they had no idea that it was mine, and they just randomly sent it to me. So that's kind of a good feeling. But I don't know. I tend to see the good in everything when I probably shouldn't sometimes. But I tend to think that if you love Pokemon Go, if you love Ingress, those are my main two games. There's others, Monster Hunter, Peridot, Pikmin, etc. But if you like playing the games as much as I do, I am selfish, like I've said in many podcasts. So if I live, play, or work somewhere, I'm going to proliferate the map in those areas, because if I'm going to be there for a long period of time, I don't want to be bored. So the place where I used to work at the tech company, there's 3 gyms and like 13 POIs, Pokestops on the campus. Legitimately every sale has something in it. And at the new place I work now, Trainer Mystic, shout out to Trainer Mystic, my roommate in New York, was at a restaurant over in South Charlotte where my new work is. And he saw the 3 new stops I put in. He was like, I was over here not that long ago, and there's 3 new stops. I'm like, turn around, because he called me. I'm like, turn around. You see that big glass building? I work on the 11th floor of that building. That's why there's 3 new stops there, because I'm not going to sit in this building 8 hours a day and not have anything for my auto spinner to do. So I'm selfish. If you want to find out where I'm at, look for the clusters of things, and that's probably where I'm at, because if by the house, at the park by my house, at my work, my route to work to get from my house to the freeway, anything eligible along that route is a POI in the game. So that's just me. I do it for very selfish reasons, but I also know that that's going to help other people. And hopefully, like you said, that will spur them to want to go and pay it forward for other people.
Yeah.
So last thing on this, Chris, best ways to coordinate with other explorers so you don't nominate the same things. Now, that's a good problem to have. That's a good problem to have, Discord. So I want to give a shout out to the Georgia Discord server, Wayfarer server. They've got a shared map down there where they put their potential nominations on this map. So other explorers will see that so-and-so is thinking about nominating this, or so-and-so has this in voting, blah, blah, blah. That's amazing. That takes a lot of work, more work than I think I'd want to do. Another way that you could do that is kind of divide the town up into sections. Hey, I'm going to do everything west of the freeway. You do everything east of the freeway. Or there's just YOLO and just see what happens.
I think chats, like even like a Facebook chat, or when I was in Plattsburgh, I started a Discord, and I would share. I literally took screenshots of the Intel map, the Intel map, and I would post it in the Pokemon chat with all of my pins. I'd be like, listen, I'm going to this park tomorrow, the next day, or whatever. Here's all the things that I want to do. And this is back when that you could only have 7 nominations at a time. So like that one park in Plattsburgh I did, I think there was 15 or 16 in there. And I was just like, this is going to take me a couple of weeks. So I need anybody to not mess this up. And people were just like, you could just go. No one's going to touch it. Right. And I was
right.
Even other things, it was just like, hey, people would post stuff and be like, hey, I'm going to go do this park. What do you think? And then I would say, okay, move that pin like 2 meters this way, or that pin that way. And then here's a description idea for this and that. And then we would collaborate on descriptions and titles and pin placement. But it was great because we maximized the game board with legitimate pin placements. Like you always say, what's a few meters between friends? But having that chat was so key. Like even people who didn't do Wayfarer would pop into the chat and be like, hey, I saw this. Can someone go and do it? And the first couple of times we're like, if you meet me there, I'll teach you how to do it. And they're like, no, I'm just going to keep feeding you ideas and you can go do it. I'm like, fair. But having that chat available to the whole community not only gave them the opportunity to see what we were doing, but it gave them an opportunity to input ideas and give us ideas for stuff to go nominate. And then between the 3 of us, we would be like, the 4 of us, we'd be like, I don't have any nominations. I don't get any nominations back until next week. And I already have plans for mine. Can somebody else go and do this? And people are like, yeah, don't worry, I got it. So we would, as a group, we would kind of collaborate.
That's amazing.
And get everything into the game as quickly as possible, right? And it was great because Plattsburgh was ripe with stuff to nominate. And whoever was playing Ingress in the OPR days did like a very basic job of just creating portals here and there, one for a park, whatever, right? So there was a lot of stuff, and it took us a couple of months, but we changed the game board in Plattsburgh like enormously. And that chat still goes. Like there's not a lot left in Plattsburgh to nominate, but just that chat still pops up once in a while. I'm still in that Discord.
You know what's amazing about those days? If I can put my old man hat on, those were the days where you could have some influence over what became a gym and when it did. So you could be strategic about what you put into voting at what time. And that's how I was able to get my park where all the gyms are in the middle by the cover. So there's 7 gyms that you can reach from one spot in my park. And that's where we go on Wednesdays, because you can just literally walk around the gazebo and hit all 7 gyms. And we can get all 7 in the first half an hour and then go the other way and get all 7 in the second half an hour. So we can get 14, 15 sometimes, depending on how the timer goes on a Wednesday. But that was very strategic in how we plan that out. Nowadays, Niantic considers that abuse. But those were the days where you could have some agency over what became a gym and what didn't. So those are kind of the great days where you could like really legitimately plan out and tell somebody, like in Plattsburgh, you could say, all right, this is going to be a stop. That's going to be a gym. Here's what I need you to do. Who's an Ingress agent? I need you to go in and vote for this photo. I need you to do this. And you could give people directions. And there was people that were only voters. That's all they did. They had a level 1 Ingress account. God, this sounds like abuse. They had a level 1 Ingress account, and all they did was go in and vote on photos. That's all I said. Don't play Ingress. I don't care if you play. Just I need you to have a level 1 account so you can go vote for this photo. So
we did the same thing.
Somebody
absolutely did the same thing.
Niantic, Aaron, and LC, and Tibbet, and Tina are listening right now, falling off their chair, going, "What? You did what?" I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations has run out on all that, so I'm in the clear. So if you guys don't hear me for a while, then they got me, but I think I'm in the clear. So
I think we're okay. We're okay.
All right, Chris, before we go to break, we got an email from a listener, Fear the Turtle, and we just literally ran out of time the other day, but Fear the Turtle wrote in while they were listening to one of the more recent episodes, so I wanted to read their email and just get your feedback on it real quick before we go to break. So it says, greeting, Jamal and Glaw. I'm in the middle of listening to episode 122, which is during the Wayfarer challenge. As of recording, it seems like we're going to blow through the 145 reviews as needed for tier 4 of the global rewards. Womp womp. But as of my writing, around 8 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday, May 19th, we are at 69,487 resolved, 47.9%. And calculating by hours, we are 63.2% through the challenge, 91 out of 144. I'm not sure we're going to hit that tier 4 goal. We didn't. One of the reasons for this may be the motivation for a vast majority of Wayfarers to complete more than 100 reviews. I know there are many out there like myself and like you fine gentlemen who contribute as much as they can. But I have to think that many casual Wayfarers are reviewing for the goals, which I think are currently arranged to motivate a majority to do 100 and stop. The global rewards are already much better, much greater than the individual rewards, which I think is fine. But I believe the gap between the individual reward tiers would not be worth the effort for the casuals. I'm a Pokemon Go player, so I will concentrate on that game's rewards. But I guess the gap exists for Ingress as well. For 100 reviews, you get 1 regular incubator, which is great. For 250 reviews, we get 1 super incubator. That's not enough motivation for a Pokemon player to do 150 more reviews. 150% more reviews for an item that costs 33% more in the shop. The amount of time it takes to do 150 more reviews is simply too much for a small reward. Most will not even think about attempting this. For 500 reviews, we get 2 super incubators? ? So for 250 additional reviews, we get an additional 200 coin item. Same logic applies. I am a community ambassador and have heard this complaint from a few different trainers. Either the amount of reviews between tiers should be decreased or the rewards should increase. I prefer the latter because it creates more reviews. Thank you both for doing an amazing job with the podcast. It entertains and keeps every level of Wayfarers from beginners to enthusiasts educated and well-informed. Regards, Fear the Turtle.
Thank you for that. That's a really kind words. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you, Fear the Turtle.
Nailed it.
Yeah,
100% they nailed it.
Yep.
I know several people who got to 100 reviews and then went back and looked at, because they were less like, oh, the first individual tier is 100. I'm going to get to 100. What do I get for 100? Incubator. Okay, what's the next tier? 250 for 1 super incubator? I'm done. Right?
Yep.
Ken did 100.
Yeah.
And stop, right?
He's like, I'm done.
150. It's 150% more effort for 1 super incubator.
Right.
I went and did almost 1,000 just because I wanted to get on as high up on the leaderboard as possible, right? It wasn't necessarily about the incubators and stuff. They're great. I love them. Mm-hmm. But they're not wrong. They're not wrong.
Right.
Those individual
they're not wrong.
rewards are not fantastic.
I was trying to clear the queue, and I wanted people to clear my queue, so that was my motivation. It started off upgrades, and then I'm like, wow, if the queue's clear, I don't need my upgrades. But at some point, I feel that the backlog and the black hole's going to come back, so those upgrades will be handy. But Fear the Turtle, you were spot on. I love it. And thank you for the email, Fear the Turtle. Sorry we didn't get to it the last couple of episodes. We just had a lot of stuff, but I did not want too much time to go by before we read that email. The last couple of listener contributions to the show have really hit Chris in a spot. Like that email hit Chris, and then Agent X's voicemail hit Chris. Yeah. I think Agent X doesn't know this, but Chris is going to write 4 shows based on that email. He's got a lot of content coming out.
I'm actually thinking up a way to kind of draw up how it would look graphically. So, yeah.
And Niantic, if you're listening, this is why Agent X should be a Wayfarer ambassador next year. The dude is spot on. He's on it. So I'm still going to run that political campaign, Agent X for ambassador. I'm going to get stickers printed up. I'm going to rent a plane and have it fly over the headquarters in Niantic, one of those biplanes that fly over the sporting event. I'm going to get one of those. I'll have to check with Ken. I don't know if that's in the budget. We'll check on that.
Why not?
Agent X, we'll check on the plane. We don't know if the plane's in the budget. So, all right, Chris, we are going to be running long here, so let's jump into One's Got to Go real quick. All right, One's Got to Go. So for those listening on audio, this week's One's Got to Go. In the upper left-hand corner is banana pudding. In the upper right-hand corner is peach cobbler. In the lower left-hand corner is sweet potato pie. And in the bottom right-hand corner is pound cake. Now, you might be wondering, what is the theme this week, Jamal? These are all traditional U.S. Southern delicacies, desserts. So if you go to a family dinner in the South of the U.S., could be anywhere, but primarily in the South, you're going to see one or more of these items. And just so nobody at me, we don't do pumpkin pie, we do sweet potato pie. So put that out there. All right, Chris, I'm going to turn this over to you. One's Got to Go, and why?
This one is super, super easy for me. Sweet potato pie, because I don't like it.
What?
All the other three, love them. I would eat many, many pounds of them. Sweet potato pie, not a fan. Not a fan.
So, all right, this is 2 times in a row you surprised me. You surprised me with the Ric Flair, and I thought you were going to go pound cake. So, for everybody listening and watching, this is why we do this live. We don't rehearse this part because I legit thought this man was going to say pound cake, and I was going to be like, yeah. And he goes sweet potato pie. After I just said we don't do pumpkin pie, we do sweet potato pie. That's my number one.
Really?
Oh, you don't like
if pumpkin pie were on this, it would be pumpkin pie. I hate pumpkin pie.
All right.
But yeah, not a fan.
Wow. All right. Okay. So sweet potato pie. That's fair. All right. I appreciate your opinion, even though it's wrong. I appreciate it, you know. For me, it's pound cake. Pound cake is dry. The only pound cake I like is Little Pound Cake X, friend of the show. That's the only one I like.
Nice.
But if I'm going to rank these, I'd go sweet potato pie, number 1. I'd go peach cobbler, number 2. I'd go banana pudding, number 3. And I'd go pound cake, number 4. So,
yeah, for me, it's peach cobbler, banana pudding, pound cake, sweet potato pie.
Okay. All right. I guess after a year and a half of doing shows, we still got to get to know more about each other. So, okay. All right. No, that's good. All right. So we're running long, so we're going to go to break. Before we go to break, get ready for the dad jokes. They're going to be super funny. I want to give a special shout out to everybody who is playing Community Day right now, riding a bike in St. Louis. Thank you guys for listening to the show. All of the dad jokes are bike themed. So special shout out to the community ambassador and everybody in St. Louis, Missouri. We appreciate you listening. So we will go to break and play those dad jokes. See you on the other side.
Are you serious? This again? It's season 3.
Did you hear about the environmentalist that rode down the same bike path twice? Yep, he recycled. It becomes more expensive every year to buy a pump for my tire because of inflation. So I was selling my bike to an interested buyer, and he asked what would be the lowest I would go. About 2 miles an hour, I said. Otherwise, I'd tip over. My buddy is a really good unicycle user, but he is very socially awkward when we go out for a drink. Turns out he can't handle the bars. Why can't the bike stand up on its own? Because it's too tired. I may have used that one before. Maybe I'll have to ask Matty G. He checks me on this. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Wayspotters podcast with Chris and Jamal. And the dad jokes are funny this week. You know, you be careful riding a bike. Watch out for that asphalt. You could really get hurt. But moving right along, Chris, I want to go to something that I love is Wayspot of the Week.
Let's take a look at a beautiful example of what the Wayspotters podcast thinks you should be nominating. We proudly present the Wayspot of the Week.
All right, Wayspot of the Week, number 1. I will take this one. This one comes to us from Ambassador Rowley. Ambassador Rowley put this in the Wayfarer discussion Discord chat a while back. And as I was looking, I went through and I said, oh man, this is fantastic. Like we really need to feature this as a Wayspot of the week. So I reached out to Rolly and said, hey man, I'm going to use this as Wayspot of the week. Anything you can tell me about it. And we're going to go here. So for those of you who are listening on audio, this Wayspot of the week is called, Can You Imagine a World Without Color? And it's a mural, and it says, "Can you imagine a world without color?" It's a vibrant and dynamic piece of art created by an Australian author. That's really small, and I can't make it bigger. But let me explain to you what this is. So this is like the front of a building, like the facade of a building. You can see some benches down front. The benches, thankfully, were not nominated, to go back to what we talked about earlier. But it's the facade of a building. You can see the window, and then above it, on like kind of that second story, is a very colorful mural. So there's a woman that's looking to the left. You can see kind of the profile of her face, and then in the background are kind of like thoughts going through her head, and the windows are painted, and it's just real kind of abstract looking mural. And if you look at it like 5 or 6 times, you're going to find little things that you didn't see in there. But it's something, if you're driving down the side of the road or walking, you're going to want to stop and look and see what you can find in there. But the title of it, Can You Imagine a World Without Color, just makes it even better because it's very colorful, and it takes what would have been kind of a bland, drab building and really puts some zip to it.
That is gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. This is such a great mural.
Yeah,
and we love our 2-story murals here, and this is one of the best ones that I think that we've ever had. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Yep. And Ambassador Rowley has a story around it, but I'll save that for another time to tell his story about that. But this is one of the better ones that I've seen, and when I came across this, I'm like, you know what, I need to have that on the show. So that
Absolutely.
is Wayspot of the week number 1. So again, this week we have a bonus Wayspot of the week. So Chris, I'm going to give this one to you.
Oh, gee, I wonder why. Oh boy. Okay. All right. So this is a post with a bunch of direction signs on it. So like think trail markers. There's some signs on it with arrows pointing it. It's in the middle of it looks like a field area. There's a path that goes through the center of it. There's a beautiful rainbow that arches over the trail marker. It's absolutely gorgeous. This picture is just fantastic. And this comes to us from Wayfarer Ambassador Bread. And the title, and this is why Jamal gave it to me, the title is Wanderwegweiser. I'm Weigelschaffner Sport gelandet. The description is, wow, this is a long one. That's great. That's fantastic. This is good times. Good content we're making here. Wanderwegweiser, what is Quata wenn one der Irgen Frankreich, Schweiz meint der Wanderwegen hier kreuzen sich der westliche Albrandweg entlang des gesamten westlichen Trost der Frankenstein-Alb der Siebenflussi Wanderweg, der Ego-Lasheimer Rundweg durch das Gesamt Gemme in Degbeit Sawi Lar Lok al Wanderweg Evermanstadt Tiefenstürmjörg Nuisance. I want to know if somebody who speaks this language, German, I'm pretty sure it's German.
I think it's German, yeah.
Understood any of that.
So I'm going to send an advanced copy of this to our friend Kroner. Shout out to Kroner, and ask him if he can Jeez, I wonder. I'm going to ask him if he can decipher any of that and see how close you were. I wonder if you went to Germany and enrolled in like a kindergarten class, like, would you pass?
Kindergarten. Wow.
Oh man,
That is like the best backhanded insult I've ever heard in my entire life. I wonder if you'd survive in German kindergarten. No. The answer is no.
And I wonder if reading that description would classify as Cole of the Week. Now, if I tried to read that, you did much better than I would ever do. I'm glad we started this with you reading the foreign languages, because we would be here all day if I was trying to read that. So I salute you, sir. I salute you for being a good sport, because that would have not turned out the same way if I was doing it. So don't take that as a backhand compliment. Take that as you gave it the old college try. And I would have struggled big time on that.
I enjoy it. It's fun.
Yep.
And I don't look at these ahead of time on purpose.
And I think that's the best part. I remember a couple of weeks ago, you were like, "Oh, okay." You're like, "Oh, I see." I'm like, "Yes." Kroner and I planned that out. So yeah.
Yep.
That was awesome. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at Cole of the Week, shall we?
Shall we?
I've been working on the Wayfarer all the long day. I've been working on the Wayfarer just to pass the... Uh-oh. Oh, no. Hey, Jamal. I found some coal.
All right. This week's Cole of the Week comes to us from Lizzie B. Darcy in the Georgia Wayfarer server. Had a chance to meet Lizzie a few months back when her and Sir Amanda and a few other people came to Charlotte. And I was in their server the other day, and I'm like, ooh, look at this. We're going to make this Cole of the Week. So what you're looking at here, for people who are listening on audio, I'll read you the title. Ringgold Elementary Swing Set. Swing set at Ringgold Elementary School. Okay, hard stop. Do we need to even go any further? Do I need to tell you anything about it? Why? Why? Now, I could see it if someone was like, Ringgold Park swing set at Ringgold Park. But when you put elementary school in the title and the description, I don't need to go any further than that. But I will say it is a swing set. If it was in a park, it would be eligible. And if you look on the overhead map, it is clearly on school property. K-12. K-12 was one of my no-goes, so that's Cole of the Week. I don't think we need to say anything else about that one.
No. Yeah, I mean, here's a funny thing. Like, there's a street in between the school and where all of that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yeah, it's on K-12 grounds, but you could almost get away with that. Like, I've seen worse.
Right. Well, not when you label it Ringgold Elementary Swing Set. Right. You're not trying to be sneaky there.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's K-12 is no go. I would love to see Niantic geofence these nominations and say, just have it not even allow you to place the pin there, because they have the OpenStreetMap data.
They do.
It blocks the spawns. It should block the pin placement too. Like, if you pin it, it should say, nope, you can't do this because it's on school grounds.
Add it to the list for New York.
Yep. I got it. Yeah, write that down.
Yeah. You got some good ideas, man. I love it. Now, this next Cole of the Week, Chris, I picked this one specifically for you. Like, this is like right up your alley. Whenever I see something like this, I'm like, Chris can have a field day with this.
Yeah. Okay. So this one is from Cindy Poo and the Wayfarer Discussion Discord's Colbin channel. And the title is Sam Jones, UNC Great. The description is famous African American from Scotland County. It is a beautiful mural, absolutely gorgeous mural. I'm guessing of Sam Jones. So you got a portrait of Sam Jones on the left. In the middle of it, you've got a couple of shots of, I'm guessing, Sam Jones playing basketball. another portrait of him on the right side. In the middle, there's some faded background shots.
It's kind of him through the years, from like
Him through the
being a
years,
student.
right?
Yeah, him through the years.
Yep. And it's colorful, like there's blue background, and then the purple, and then there's like a purplish teal red, and then a little bit of orange. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous mural. But the problem is somebody's whole ass car is in this shot, right? You know, I say things like, it's not that far, get out of your car. But I don't think that I needed to say this, but when you get out of your car, make sure your car's not in the shot. Somebody got out of their car and you can see the open door and their steering wheel and their whole dashboard in the shot. And it's just, it ruins this nomination completely.
They took your tagline a little too literal. They said it's not that far. I'm out of the car, but they literally got out of the car, took one step back, and took a picture of the car and the mural. So you might want to clarify your tagline a little more. And then in the supporting photo, they got the car in there also.
They got the car. It's, you know what's funny is there's less of the car in the supporting photo than there is in the main photo. You were so close. Like, this is a slam dunk. This is a slam dunk nomination that would absolutely fly through.
Yeah, for sure.
That's going to get rejected because the car's in there.
Yep. Oh, man. Oh, man. Awesome. Oh, man. Oh, terrible. It's terrible. Yep. All right. You got anything else?
I have nothing else.
All right. So we cannot have an episode of Wayspotters without shouting out our fabulous executive producer, KatettheKonz. You rock. As well as all of our other Patreons. We love you. We appreciate what you do for us and for the show. So thank you for listening to this episode of Wayspotters. If you enjoy what you hear, there's a couple of ways that you can tell us. The first thing you can do is follow us and interact with us on Twitter. I'm sorry, on X. We're saying that now, right? On X.com. We are at Wayspotters on X because Elon did something. He hasn't come on the show, but he changed the domain name. We are also on Instagram at Wayspotters Podcast. And also, we are on TikTok at I Make Wayspots. Now, we try to be incredibly responsive on all of our socials with all of our listeners and try to do our best to get back and interact with everybody who interacts with us. So thank you, and please continue to do that. Second, you can visit our website, www.wayspotters.com. From there, you can get links to everywhere you can download the show. You can also send us a message directly from the website. You can also be like Fear the Turtle, and you can send us an email at wayspotters@pokemonprofessor.com. Now, some of you, hopefully all of you, but at least some of you are watching us right now on YouTube. I'm waving at you watching us on YouTube, and so is Chris. If you're not watching us on YouTube, you can listen to the podcast on audio, Terra Player, Spotify, and then you can go over to www.youtube.com/@Wayspotters Podcast, and you can see my face and you can see Chris's face, and you can follow along with everything that goes on the video podcast. Third, for our American listeners, so anybody who wants to dial an American phone number, you can call our hotline 704-426-3710. You never know, your voicemail may appear on an upcoming episode of the show, or you can tweet us directly, or wait, it's not tweet anymore. Or you can post to us directly from X. I think that's how I got to work that. I got to workshop that. And finally, if you are not a member of the Pokemon Professor Network Patreon, you can join for as little as $1 US a month. All you need to do is go to patreon.com/Pokemon Professor. From there, you will have access to the Discord for the entire family of shows across the Pokemon Professor Network, including Wayspotters, Special Conditions, Gotta Watch 'Em All, Purified Podcast, Good Morning Johto, and Lord Up. It's a fantastic place filled with fantastic people. And my favorite perk from being in the Patreon is you get invited to our Monday night Zoom calls. Every Monday night, all of the hosts, work permitting, get together on the Zoom call, and all the patrons can join, and you can ask questions about us personally, about the show. Sometimes we play board games, online board games. We coordinate for meetups. And it's just kind of a good time just to get to know people. And I've made some lifelong friends from these Zoom calls. And then when we get together, it's like an old buddy. So would love for everybody to join. I think the most people we've had on a Zoom call is probably about 25 or 30 people we've had on a Zoom call. And it gets really fun and everybody's talking and interacting and get a lot of ideas. So go to PokemonProfessor.com or go to Patreon.com/PokemonProfessor. You can join for as little as $1 US a month. Last thing, would love for you guys to do me a favor on the podcatcher that you're currently listening to us on now. Give us a 5-star rating. We love 5 stars. They're the best. And if you're on YouTube, send us a little shout out. We'll read it on the show. And if you want to be a superstar on the podcatcher you're listening to us now, write a review. I promise one of us will read it on the show. And with that, we want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of Wayspotters. We'll see you next week. And remember, what's a few meters between friends?